Hi, I'm Amy Stair, CEO of Star Power, and welcome to another edition of Star Power Club. I am thrilled to have in studio today a literal ball of energy, Ms. Kelli Guidry from Houma, Louisiana, outside of New Orleans. Kelli, thank you so much for agreeing to be one of our stars.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
Looking forward to you just spilling so much wisdom. But I want to start with your origin story. How on earth did you wind up in real estate?
So my parents flipped properties when I was younger. And so I found myself anytime that we would vacation, I was pulling the real estate section of magazines, from stores and in different locations, or even searching the real estate section inside of the newspaper regularly. I could not afford anything, but I was interested in it. And even helping my parents flip properties, so staining cabinets or pulling up carpets or even blowing popcorn ceilings when that was in. And so those were all the things that elicited that initial love for real estate inside of me, riding around looking at architectural styles and things like that. And I was in college and I was going for business. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And then suddenly I just thought, let me get my real estate license. And so I did it all online and then dove in head first and haven't looked back.
Our first glimpse at your technology angle. Let's just get it done online.
Yes, and back then, while I was in school, going for the business degree, they had just started doing online courses. And so you could opt for some, not all courses, to be taken online. And any of them that I certainly would take online. So it was very natural that seeing that they offered them online, that I did that.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So you jump into real estate with both feet. How quickly did you feel like you had your rhythm, you made the right decision, this is where you were supposed to be?
Oh, goodness. So I got into real estate in 2005, and from there I was the Rookie of the Year in that first year of real estate. Come January-ish, or that first quarter of 2006, I found out I was pregnant. So real estate kind of took a little bit of a different angle, right? I was still practicing real estate, but I did start thinking more along the lines of, can I be commission-based only? Is this smart? Will I be able to provide for my child in order to do that? So I did sidestep for a minute and try to be the secretary at the real estate office. I was terrible at that job. I do not belong behind a desk for a significant period of time. I even tried and stepping away for a little bit and doing some marketing management for a company, and I just did not do well with any of that. And there was something about real estate, something about people. I was in service industry, and so dealing with people and various types of people. In real estate, you're in the office sometimes, or you're out knocking on doors or walking people through houses. There's just movement around it all. So I did detour for a little bit, but whenever I realized, I had the baby and I could still work commission-based only, I liked to be in charge of what that commission or what my income looked like. And so I dove back into real estate and I went all in. I actually, from that point, I started developing a website and started to form a team. Even someone had approached me about forming up a team, and so did that and just went all in on all the things.
So let's talk about that, because you have been through several iterations of teams, and you got it early. You got the point of leverage. So what did that first team look like? How did you get that started?
The first team was such a learning curve. And actually, that's how you and I came to meet all those years ago. And it was because no one in my area had teamed up to do anything other than spouses. Right, spouses selling houses, and there was a broker in town that she had teamed up with an associate broker, but no two real estate agents had teamed up outside of that. And so I, along with the business partner, started figuring out how we were going to do this. The broker brought back a newspaper, and it was with Teresa Hamilton, and she's about 2 hours outside of my market, and he's like, they're doing a team here in Lafayette, because we wanted to make sure that in forming a team, we were following all the commission guidelines and things like that. And so I took a chance and called her and said, hi, I'm a new agent in, a couple of hours outside of where you're at and looking to form up a team. I see that you're already doing it. I'm never going to be in your market. Would you by chance talk with me? And she said, absolutely. And so she did, and she gave me your contact information, and you really helped to guide me on how to set a lot of things up and what that team looked like. So those systematizing the steps of what it is that we were doing, because I failed forward a lot in those moments. What I found, because my business partner, Jill is her name, she was a producer herself and had been in the business for a while, and I was also a producer. So we had two producers coming together. What I found was that we were doubling up steps at times. And so we needed to coordinate and not do that.
For sure.
There's a lot of wasted energy at times, right? And so then we got started on the checklist and, listing coordination checklists and transaction management and databases. No one was talking about those things in small town USA where I am from. And so, I remember having the Dale Carnegie planner, and I would use my A, B, and C and arrow forward. And then you introduced me to there's a online database where you can keep everyone's information and set it and forget it, and, things like that. And so that was initially how it started. And then that team, we outgrew the company that we were at. And because the splits were just tough to, you even told me, you were like, this is the lowest that I think I've seen ever.
Anywhere in the country.
Anywhere in the country, yes. And so, excuse me. So we naturally went to the broker and said, we need you to work with us if we're going to continue to grow this out. That broker was scared to work with us, though. And one thing, when we sat at that table, he said, what if I do all of this and then y'all break away and go start your own company? And I said, well, I can see how you could, it's a valid point. However, if you never lose sight of the shore, you never know what's out there. And at that point, we had never even considered about breaking off and going on our own. I had never considered getting an associate broker's license, none of that. But it started the onset of all of those things. So because we had so many challenges, right? In order to get our name on the marquee outside, they wouldn't take our combined numbers to put our names up on the board. So we would have to do more than everyone else, and it'd have to be divided by 2 in order. It was just all of these hoops and obstacles, but we were setting a pace that, hadn't been done. I guess we were headed down a path that hadn't been done before. So they didn't know really what to do with us. We ended up leaving that company and going with another one. And that team, we added a third person in, a licensed assistant. And so she came along with us to that other company. And finally, my business partner looked at me and she's like, I'm not happy. And it was because the broker who we had originally started the team under was someone who was so close to her. She had lost her father when she was young, and she missed that everyday relationship and being around him. He was there when she had cancer and these different things. And so I said, oh my gosh, you have to go back. You can't not be happy, right?
Yeah.
But we had also gotten to a point where I was doing a lot more of the production, and she was just losing her gusto for all the things. And so the team certainly has evolved over the years. From there, it went to, me and the licensed assistant and a virtual assistant. And I then went on to get my associate broker's license, open up a brokerage, and had agents underneath me there, and then ended up taking the agency and going into one of the cloud-based brokerages. and forming up a team there. So yes, the team has changed and evolved over the years. I've failed forward, I don't know how many times in learning. I think I was naive in the beginning to think that I could set a system in place and then it would just be that forever. And of course it can't be, right? Technology evolves, buyers evolve, real estate evolves. We evolve.
Yes, that's the most important one right there.
Yes, so all the way to where we're at today. And today what a team looks like for me now is I do not have any licensed agents that I am responsible for anymore, and I love that for me. I do have 2 virtual assistants and myself, and I do have people that are in my downline that when I need a showing agent, when I need something while I'm away, I'll just pay them an hourly rate to go and do it, and life is fabulous.
Well, I know, Kelli, that you are ever evolving. So that's where it is today. And who knows what it's going to look like 2 years from now.
That's right.
But it's working well for you.
It is.
So let's dig into the nitty gritty of what specifically is working well for you. You leaned into technology straight out of the chute. And you talk a lot about digital footprint. So let's get into some of that.
So early on, I did. I started in the business in 2005, so smartphones weren't around yet, and we were still faxing all of the listing input into the board association, and they would input all of our listing information. So setting the tone for what it was like then. And at that time, I leaned into online as much as I could. And so anything that would allow me as a real estate professional to put my bio and my information on, I did. I started a Google My Business then, and I focused on just wherever I could put my online information at, I would. Over the years, that changed. I was one of the early ones to start with Zillow in my marketplace. And so Zillow wasn't as widespread or a household name as what it is today. And from there, it was the way that they sold those were impressions, right? Yes. And so you had however many impressions, but because some of the areas nearby were very rural, they didn't have anyone to cover those areas. So I certainly got a lot more than what I was paying for or what the contract was at that time. And I started working on reviews, online reviews back then, because I noticed just how important I felt that it was going to be important at some point in time.
Yeah.
And so I grew the online reviews, and then when we were able to put Google reviews on, and I did that, and Facebook, and as we just started doing, so that digital footprint, making sure to get reviews anywheres and everywheres that I could, making sure that my information was everywheres that I could possibly be. And so now today, when I'm easily searchable, and it's helped tremendously. Even if I'm not stacked with, a significant amount of reviews on a certain platform, I've had people find me, be it on Yelp, be it through Google or Zillow, and now I'm able to be found by people on the East Coast or West Coast and every which way that are looking to make a move to South Louisiana.
So how are you going about getting those reviews today?
So we send out an email after the client has had an experience with us asking for the review, but I also set it up at closing when I'm there and I'm talking about that we'll be asking for a review. And one thing that I like to say often with them, and it always gets a little bit of a chuckle, is that, hey, thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this journey. I know there's a lot of people to choose from. And if you don't mind, a way for me to continue to earn business from other people is if you would take a moment to review me. So after all is said and done, we're going to send out a link. And if you could give me a fabulous review, I would greatly appreciate it. If not, and you just totally hated the experience, it was awful, you never want to work with me again, please share that information with me now, or even later, we can. Please don't put that online. And so they always laugh because it just kind of breaks the ice, because I have done a good job for them. We were very attentive throughout the entire process. And
Sure.
so So it always getting that laugh. And because they're telling me yes at the closing table, like, oh, yes, I'm going to do that. I feel like they have more skin in the game to actually get the review done. And so, yeah, we're very fortunate that people continue to review us. I am the most reviewed in my area on Zillow. And so I have a lot of people that find me that way. Because of course, when people call in, it's one of the questions that I ask. I want to know, how are you finding me?
Yeah.
Right?
So how are you getting the Zillow reviews? A little bit different from the Google reviews.
So we're doing the same thing. We're sending out that link to them. There's a link that we can send on there and that we're asking. And so at one point in time, I used to send to all, right? I'd send them the Facebook and the Google and the Zillow. And what I realized is nobody wants to sit there and review you that many times.
Right.
So you're only going to get one. And so we would just focus on any one particular at a given time. So it was, we're only focusing on Zillow to grow those reviews, or we're only focusing on Google to focus on those reviews and growing that.
It's very wise to focus in like that and go narrow. Let's talk about some of the other technology that you're really getting behind. You told me that you are now the first AI certified realtor in the state of Louisiana.
I am.
What drove you to pursue that?
So, one, because I am just a fanatic about personal growth. And so that's something that's always been really important to me. And just as I've leaned into technology, whether or not embracing online, reviews and things like that early on, or even digital signings. I was the first in my marketplace to be using the digital signing. So I'm always looking to push for leaning into technology and what comes next with that, even into our local association. The MLS system that we used was old. It was Navica, SEI, and everyone else that I would talk to and meet through your group and through many others were Paragon or Matrix or these MLS systems that had all these bells and whistles. And so even getting our association to make that switch over to a system that utilizes the technology, it's something I've always leaned into. So first and foremost, it's for my own personal growth and evolution. I know that that's where we're going, and leaning into that is really important. So, and then it was also the guys who created the course. I know them. They are fabulous. I think the most important thing that we can do as professionals are get in the right rooms, get around the people who are doing better than us. And these guys were in one of those rooms back in like 2019. And they were actually doing call centers and ISA work. And we were at Joe Viacusa's office. He owns Century 21 All-Stars in LA. And it was a room filled with broker owners and from all over the country, and independent team leaders and independent brokerages, franchise, everybody was in there. And these two young guys, this one young guy got in front and started dialing in front of a room full of professionals. Like, you talk about the guts, right, that it takes to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they were doing that, and just knowing and who it was that they've been associated with and what they've done and things like that. So when they came out with this course, I knew that I wanted to align and go ahead and take it. And there's two courses I've taken in the course of my career that I believe that those individuals, those creators of the courses, over-delivered. And this was one of them, where in those 6 days, they broke it down in paint by numbers. It was so easy to understand. I really feel like I could have put my 90-year-old grandmother in that course and she would have done extremely well. Like, I could put her to work afterwards, right? Excuse me. And so knowing who it was that was doing the course, right? They weren't in theory. It was someone who was out there marketing at a high level. And so I took the course, and it was worth every penny to take it and paint by numbers. And so, yeah, it's been like over a year now that I've been implementing AI inside of my business. And interestingly enough, when our local association sent our reps to state and national conference, when they came back, all the reviews and the debriefing was, they keep telling us to lean into AI. And here I was like, I'm already all the way in. And so, excuse me, that is what got me through the course. And since then, yeah, implementing it.
So most people in real estate, when they hear AI, they think the simple things. Help me write a property description.
Right.
What are the things that you see AI having capability to really bolster the real estate business?
So I feel like in a way we've already been using AI for anybody who's been using like the home value market updates and things like that. And then of course, CRMs are starting to implement by being able to take in a lot of the information that's already the conversation exchanges, the emails, the interaction that the consumer's having to be able to further along the conversations. What I see happening is that it's going to allow real estate professionals, individual solo agents, to compete with teams, to go in and take over marketplaces that aren't leaning into technology and utilizing technology in that way. I don't think that it'll replace the human connection, whereas some people are so nervous about that. Even over this past year of using AI, some people are not about the conversation, right? They despise it. My 13-year-old does not like AI, right? and he tells me how he does not like it. He does not think it's good. And we get into some very deep conversations in regards to it, because his mom's the first AI certified agent in Louisiana. And so he's very big on voicing his opinions of that. It just allows us now to compete at a level of, when you think of Google and how great their marketing is, or Nike and how great their marketing is, now me as Kelli Guidry of Home, Louisiana, I'm able to market and to get into the psyche of who it is that I represent, who I enjoy working with, who enjoys working with me at a deeper level than what I ever could have done all on my own. And so that's really great. And it allows leverage at a whole different level.
So give me some ideas.
So one is our marketing campaigns, right? And so now I have a social media content calendar that we create for all the different platforms that we're on. And we've trained my ChatGPT for me specifically, right? All the things that I have done, accomplished, and who I am. And from that, my assistant is now able to go in with prompts and create whatever it is that we need, right? So whether or not it's once we sell a property, once we list a property, these little one-liners, right, that are geared around real estate, but thought-provoking, just to stay in front of the consumer. And so now we're able to create out these massive content creation in a matter of minutes. I'm able to go in and review everything, and yes, this is it, and no, this is not. When we first got started with it, it was funny. My VA would, write up some things, and it was always like this, go girl, boss lady, and all of this. And I'm like, no, that's not who I am whatsoever, right? I'm like, how do we be authentic? How do we be genuine? How do we connect with them on a very deeper level? Because me, I don't like to stay surface level for very long. Those kind of conversations bore me. But if we're talking about real feelings and goals and what it is, the meat of the information, that fires me up every time.
I see it in your eyes right now.
Yes. It's like a fire in my belly, And so we were able to tweak. And so now my assistant is able to communicate like me and put that out into the world for me to be able to attract the people who I like doing business with the most and that seem to like to do business with me. We also are able to utilize it in ways of creating videos, right? So I have an avatar, and the voice is pretty similar to mine. And so we're able to create and take people through virtual tours and create. The next thing that I'm rolling out right now is I really want to dive into YouTube. I've dabbled into it. I haven't gone all in. And so that's where the focus is now, moving into 2025. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I can't wait to see what you put out.
Yes.
I love your creative angle. You talked about just an overall philosophy of the digital footprint that ties into all of this. And you just said a simple question to me that I think is worth visiting. How easy is it for someone to find you online?
Oh my gosh, it's incredibly easy. And so while I know this is about real estate, the fact that I'm single and dating, I'm always very nervous to give people my full name because naturally we want to look people up. I mean, we do it with clients even, right? If we get a phone call that comes in, we want to make sure we know who we're dealing with. I'm so easily searchable. And I think it's so important as professionals, we need to be easily searchable because that's how we're going to capture. It's, of course it's important to create the go-to, persona and be that professional inside of your local community. Mm-hmm. And you're able to do that through your expertise and the information you're putting out there, the connections that you're able to make, showing up community events, all of those things, referrals that come in. How do you reach outside of that sphere? And the only way you're reaching outside of that sphere is to make sure that you have that digital footprint, that you can be found online, that your name is coming up in every place that it possibly can for those people to be able to find you whenever they're looking for someone, because we're all searching for those reviews.
Absolutely.
Right? If we're shopping online.
It's, you know what? We are all looking for social proof to make decisions. So what you're saying really resonates. People have just got to get their arms wrapped around it. You also said something that I think is encouraging to people who say, gosh, I should have started when she started.
And that is not the mindset to have whatsoever, right? Because we can't go into the past, and the best time to get started on anything that we want to accomplish is right now and today. And for anyone who's going to do it right now and be that action taker, you're going to beat out the person who listens to this and doesn't take action on it, and in 6 months from now is thinking the same thing, like, gosh, I should have gotten started then. So a very simple thing to do, if you've closed any business so far in your career, go to those people, ask. It could be as simple as, hey, I'm trying to build my online presence. I really enjoyed working with you. I'd love to work with more people like you. And if you would just take a moment to, fill out this and make it really easy for them, send them the link, send it via text, send it via email. And then even if you reward them in something, right? And give them a $5 coffee gift card or something like that. People appreciate that. And get started today. It's the biggest advice.
I think that's kind of your philosophy for living, would be my guess. Let's talk a little bit about the evolution of branding. I think this is interesting and valuable for people to hear. I get asked a lot of times, people who have labeled themselves a certain way and are wondering if they need to change the branding because they might try to sell their business one day. So talk about what you started with and where you're at now.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And so branding for me has even evolved over the years. I got into the business and with my maiden name. And so I had a logo, it was a magnolia at that time, and moved from that into a team. And so by that time, I was married, so I was changing my last name in real estate, and created a team, and it was Bayou Region Real Estate Team. Then our state had come out with new laws or new, rules around realtors and team names, and you couldn't have real estate in the team name if you weren't a broker, and we weren't a broker, and so we needed to change it, and so it became Bayou Region Home Team. And so I have certainly evolved over the years. And even when it changed, I went from, I took the opportunity to even modernize what the logo looked like, right? The logo was more intricate for the initial one. And then when I realized how tough that is to monogram some things, and it's all that failing forward, the things that you don't know when you're creating some of this. And took the opportunity to, rebrand those things. But each time I did, I made sure to keep it pretty similar, right? I didn't, and I kept the color scheme pretty similar, but then also communicating it. And so whether or not it was in my listing presentation for, old team, same team, different name is the slide that I use that will move from what the old branding was to what the new branding is. And yeah, because it's changed and evolved. And even right now, while I still use the Bayou Team email address and website, so Bayou Team is still affiliated with me because I'm not a team anymore, well, per se. I mean, I have the assistants, so I'm a team in that.
You do have a team.
I do have a team. I don't have licensed realtors on my team anymore. And so we've switched over to Kelli, Guidry and Associates. And even with that, and I switched companies, and I really liked those colors of the company. And so I wanted to embrace that. Quite frankly, the old colors I didn't love. I allowed it to be a democracy, and the team voted on what those colors were, and that's what we moved forward with. And so I was even able to change those colors. And so I think as long as people communicate what the changes are, and if you're able to keep it pretty similar, and people won't necessarily get behind the brand, it's more so you.
Yes.
It's who's leading the brand. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter what company I worked for throughout my entire career. People don't even really know that, even on occasion, because the company I'm with now I was the first one in our area to be with that company, and we've grown some, and people ask, you'll still get some individuals, consumers out there that they like knowing, some companies and things like that. And while we're talking, they're like, oh, well, I've never heard of that company. I'm like, oh, no, you wouldn't. Yeah, it's me here, however. And because I'm from that small town USA,
yes,
at the end of the day, I do just explain to them and educate them. It really doesn't matter. I've worked for the different companies. I've worked for the boutique companies. I've worked for the franchise companies. I've worked for the cloud-based companies. And I've worked for my own. And at the end of the day, they didn't pay anything in order for me to market and sell your property. I'm the one who's paying for the marketing to sell your property. And so when you're interviewing other agents, make sure you find out what exactly are they doing to market and sell your property.
I love that spin. It's so simple. What I love beyond the confidence you have in just speaking authentically and true to people is you really have settled into consistency as your undercurrent of the change, whether it's your life or your branding. You have laid a very clean foundation of consistency. Your listing presentation, for example.
Yes. Yeah, so my listing presentation, and actually it got leveled up from what I was taught in real estate to and one of those courses, and that is the second person. I mentioned earlier that there were 2 courses that I had taken that really over-delivered, and this was another one where it started the foundation of what my listing presentation looked like, and of course it evolved over the years, whether or not, as I mentioned, change in branding. We'd slide a different deck in there. COVID, we did a certification, slid that deck in there. So it changes based upon what we have going on. But the consistency of it and definitely has stayed the same. Overcoming objections before they can even ask, right? I always would want to position myself to give them what the objection and the answer is before they can even ask me, because and I guess that's whenever I realized that once I made it a very consistent process, I was able to identify what did I do or what could I do differently to have landed a listing if I ever missed, right? Because when I was giving each person a different experience, I might go in one day and I'm super prepared, and the next day I'm not really that prepared, and kind of all over the place. I couldn't identify what is it that I did or didn't do that didn't get me the result that I wanted. So once I had a consistent listing presentation, well, then I was able to identify, oh, well, now I'm landing just about all of them that I go on, right? The only reason I wouldn't is if it's a not right now, and, my numbers are pretty good as far as that conversion rate goes. The consistency also bleeds into things to do around the Bayou, an email campaign that we've been running now for over 15 years that every Friday, delivered to our consumers' inboxes, is things happening around the bayou. And as I've expanded into the New Orleans market and as I've expanded into the Baton Rouge market, we're evolving with what that looks like. We're pulling in things to do in all of those areas as well. And then even Monday Motivation. So I am well known. If you ask, people inside of my community or people that know me in general, they would say that I'm inspirational or, silver lining, and I like to stay in that space. I have even a closing.
Girl after my own heart.
I have a closing attorney that we were working a deal, and he's like, I said, I know you think I'm all rainbows and sunshine, and he's like, I do. And I was like, well, I'm still, I realize what the consequences could be, or I realize what the dangers can be. I just choose to remain in a space where I go for what's positive. I set the intention of my day. I feed myself, whether it's my mind or images or the words that I speak. I wanted to lean into the positive aspects of life. And it was through a statistic I'd heard, right? 2,500 positive images, yet 25,000 negative images that we're hit with on a daily basis.
Oh my gosh.
And when I heard that, and I was like, well, I'm going to be 2,501. I'm going to be that one extra that when people run into me. And so Monday Motivation seemed like a natural evolution. I was posting it all the time on my social media, just these positive things. And I say positive things. It wasn't always positive. It was just very real or inspirational or hold the mirror up and look. And I'd started doing it just for me. And then when I would go places, I realized the impact that it was having on others. And so I was at a party and someone walked up to me, and it wasn't someone that I would see very often, and said, oh my gosh, I love all the things that you put out there. And Amy, I had actually kind of fell in my own little slump and I had stopped putting them out there. However, the algorithm of social media, right? People don't really know how much you're posting.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, I got to start posting this again. Then it wasn't for me, it was for others. And over the years, I've had people tell me that when they're down, they will specifically go to my social media pages to go and look and see, because they know that I'm posting things that are uplifting in some kind of way, shape, or form. And so we do that with our Monday Motivation. And even the consistency of that's been over 15 years now that we've been doing that as well.
Wow.
And yeah, just recently I received a reply back, and a woman I didn't even realize, she's really involved in our community. And she said, I just love these. I didn't even know she was on our mailing list, on our email campaign list.
Surprise.
Yeah. And so it's those little things, but that consistency beats out expertise all day long.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So while we're on the subject of technology that supports authenticity, you have several tools that you use in your office, but one big one is Trello. And I know some people have no idea what that is. So can you talk a little bit about how you're leveraging Trello?
Yeah. So Trello is great because it allows you to create these lists, right? It's very basic form. It allows you to create lists and invite others on. And so any kind of like team management, if you have multiple people working on any kind of task or project, you're able to bring everybody on and see where people are at in the process. And so I'm very visual. And so all I kept saying and thinking is, I want there to be this, just like Domino's pizza, when you order the pizza and you can watch the progression of it. I wanted that for our files. I wanted to see that on listing coordination or transaction management. And I wanted anybody to be able to log on at any point in time and see where exactly it was in the transition of everything. And so we created a very robust system and with Trello. And with that, it is these different columns, right? And these cards that you create. And we've attached on these power-ups and these butlers and these zaps and all these other things to it. But what it's done is we've broken down the transaction management process and the listing coordination process, and it's a list. And so from the time you go in and create the card, When I was running a team and had agents that were also taking on listings and entering them in, we would have this Google Doc that they would fill out, and it would create the card and it would populate onto the Trello desktop. And from there, they would check the paperwork and go through the list of all the things that need to happen. As soon as that column was complete and you take the card and move it to the next, it would automatically send out emails, welcome to the team. And we were able to decrease the amount of errors that was happening throughout the process. We were able to create where if someone was out, and this was really helpful during COVID too, that if somebody was out and someone else needed to get on, you could just log on and see where the process was left off at, what step needed to be picked up on to continue carrying the torch all the way through the transaction.
So valuable.
Yeah, and so we would have it where you move that card and it sends out to the agent on the other side and to the lender and to the title company. And then it was just training the, title company people that we've already provided you all the information. You don't have to call us 2 weeks before you're ready to get closing and start asking us all the client information. We've provided you everything that you need for them and commissions and everything all in that email. So yeah, it's been a great system. However, I will say that when you have someone else build that out, that is something to keep in mind, because I had someone who built it out for me, right? Made my vision come to life. And then when they were no longer part of the organization, everything ran fine still. But when I moved companies and I made a change, and you could think of that as changing out a logo or contact information, addresses, anything like that, the way you build that out is a lot of code. And so if you don't know how to do code, you either have to find someone else who's able to, write that code and make those corrections, because as with anything on coding on that technical back end, you can really mess some things up if you don't know what you're doing.
And your strengths lie elsewhere. It's about leverage.
Yes, it is not behind a desk or writing code.
We talked a bit before about the big lessons that you've learned. If you had a recruit sitting in your office today, what are some of the big things you tell them they got to do right away?
Right away is find a mentor. And even if it's who's the top producing agents inside of your community, inside of your MLS, and find a way to get in front of them. Whatever that takes, whatever it means, if they need help with doing something, and offer your help. Offer, can I do any open houses for you? Is there anything, paperwork that I can do for you? Anything that I can do in exchange, I just want you to teach me. And more often than not, top producing agents are happy to open up and let someone peek behind the curtain and share for an agent who wants to get in the business and is yearning to learn more. I think that the days of, the secret agent are gone.
Yes.
There's so much information out there. The biggest struggle is whether or not a new agent is hearing from someone who is a practitioner versus someone who, in theory, this is how it's supposed to work. And I think that we have a lot of organizations, real estate companies out there that they have trainers. However, the trainers are teaching from theory. If you actually looked up what their statistics are and how many sales they've actually conducted, it's very low, and that's why they're training. And for me, I want to shortcut my learning curve. That's why getting in the right rooms with the right people, who are the people that are at the level of business that you want to be at, what it is that you can do. There was a guy in my marketplace, young guy, and I could just see the hunger in him. And anytime that he had me on the phone, he might have been calling to ask about one of my listings. And who knows, I don't know if he had a buyer even. That might have been a great in, right? to get in and start talking to somebody who's a producer in the area.
Sure.
But he would ask me all kinds of questions, and I guess in conversation, it came up I was in the middle of moving, and he's like, if you need any help, let me know. And I was like, I need help putting together this shelf. And so he came over and he put together the shelf, and I knew I could see what it is that he was doing, right? He wanted to pick my brain. And for that, in exchange, I showed him my entire listing presentation. Because at the end of the day, I knew that, Jordan was never going to be able to be Kelly, and Kelly's never going to be able to be Jordan, right?
Yeah.
And so it's okay to share exactly what it is that I'm doing with others inside my marketplace, because they can't go out and do what I did. And they can go out and do what I did. They can't do it like me. I'm going to attract the clients that I'm going to attract because of who I am.
Yes.
Because of a lot of my clients are business owners, right? I'm straightforward. They like that. There's no fluff. They can fuss at me when it really has nothing to do with me. It has to do with that, huge contract that might have just gotten screwed up. But when they talk to me as if I'm the one who screwed it up, I kind of stand firm and, I rolls off my back and we talk business and move on, right? And so getting around those people who are willing to share from a place of abundance, make sure that you're learning from the practitioners, not the theorist, and hiring a coach, getting into the masterminds such as this and Star Power. I mean, without you, I would have been lost. Systems and processes. What? Let me go out there and be creative. That's where I, thrive, and talking with people. But those systems and processes are what truly stand at the foundation of business and allowed me to be able to be a single mom of 3 kids and run businesses and do the things that I'm able to do.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there are a lot of people out there who are dealing with that. And you've made some very conscious decisions over the years since your this last divorce.
Only divorce.
Only divorce. Yes, let me be specific there. She's not a career divorcee.
Correct.
About how you choose to live your life and integrate your business.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So at one point in time, and it's so easy to get into this business and just run yourself ragged, right? There's no one really setting those office operation hours, and it's very easy to just want to give more and more and more. And I definitely found myself doing that. And I do think that there's a time and place, right? When you're first getting started, you should be there for everybody and do all the things, and because you're trying to make a name for yourself and cut your teeth. And so while there's a time and place, but what I found was that I was really doing that throughout my entire career, and it was too much. And that's where burnout comes in. And, it was, I felt like my kids were a bit of collateral damage in it all, and that I was so good at what it is that I was doing. It came really natural, and people would give me praise afterwards, because I think that's another thing too, is that we don't always realize, but when you make the impossible happen for the client, they come back with even bigger asks next time. a lot of my business owners always come with these crazy asks, and then make it happen, and then they come with even more, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm doing it to myself though. But I was so focused on just trying to be the best that I could for everyone else, that I wasn't being the best that I could be for myself or even my kids, right? I thought that because I was earning the money to be able to provide lifestyles for them is what, was meaningful, and it wasn't. And so through the divorce, that's where, oh gosh, it's in those hard moments. It's in those lessons that really, in my opinion, are the biggest blessings. And so through that, I sat in all what had taken place in the relationship to land me where I was, and wanting to be divorced and wanting to be a single mom, and what truly mattered. When I get to my deathbed, what is really going to be important? And it's not going to be this person that I helped, pull the rabbit out of my hat for. And while I enjoy being able to do that, I realized through all of that real estate wasn't my identity. It was just what I did. And what was truly important were my kids and the time that we had together and being present for them. And so suddenly, that's what my focus became. And what happened was the boundaries that I started to place with clients, they respected them. And the ones that didn't, it was okay. They were better served working with someone else. And it probably was going to be a nightmare for both of us if we continued to work together, right? And I'm not perfect by any means, because I will still get caught up in the more. However, I'm so grateful for having experienced, that time through that transition of identifying, giving more of myself doesn't actually fill my cup or my loved ones and give us the experience that we want. So in those moments that I get caught up on that hamster wheel of wanting more and more, I'm able to at least identify it and stop and make a change and pivot into getting back into what's really important. And so, here recently, I had, I was pouring from an empty cup, and I felt like I was running ragged, and it's in those moments where it's like that square peg, round hole, and it just wasn't making sense, and it wasn't flowing. It was frustrating that I stopped and I thought, and I was like, what am I doing? And it was that I was doing too much. I was saying yes to too many things, and ego kind of gets in the way no matter how many times. And I think that's a continuous thing, right? We don't ever reach the destination. It's the continuous looking into the mirror, is this ego? And so, here just recently, I was a Zillow Flex partner, right? I thought that was something I aspired to. All the top team leaders and that I know and have had the honor of meeting, they're Zillow partners. And if they're not, they want to be. And it's, an accolade that I held at a high regard. And there were only 4 of us in the entire state of Louisiana. That's even more so, right? But what happened is, as I had people on the team that were helping to make these calls and the numbers, and, every other week you're meeting with a growth advisor and looking and what those numbers are. And, there were some weeks where it was like 300%. And yes, of course, as a natural born salesman and competitive nature that I have, those were great. But in the moments where we weren't meeting the numbers, that was really frustrating. And no one else was really on the line but me, right? In that scenario. And if someone didn't answer the call, I was the fallback person. And that meant being on call from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. There's only a few holidays in which you're not on call and that they close it down for the day. And so it put me in such a reactive state. I felt like my cortisol levels were just shot.
Yeah.
I was doing that. I also was shooting for a show that's globally streamed. And so there was a lot happening in there too. And finally, I was just like, what is it that I'm doing? I had a conversation, and I truly believe that everything we need in life is within or revealed to us if we're paying attention, right?
Yes.
And so there's these themes that just come up for me, and I have learned to listen to the guidance within, and then also what just keeps keeps coming up. And because I just see these patterns, it's like how I live life. Some things stand out and they're a little brighter than others. And sometimes these same conversations just keep coming up. And for me, that's like, hey, Kelli, that's you. That's right there. Pay attention. And so a theme came up, and I talked to 2 people who I have a lot of respect for, and they don't know each other, but both of them mentioned how they were hyper-focused in what it was that they were doing and what they were saying no to. They were saying no a lot more than what they were saying yes. And so I just sat in that and held the mirror up, and I was like, what am I saying yes to right now that is running me ragged, that is not giving me the life or the quality of life that I want for myself, for my kids? And my next meeting with my growth advisor, I was like, I'm quitting Zillow Flex. And leading up the week to that appointment, I second-guessed myself, right? So many times. Oh my gosh, is this the right thing? I don't know if this is the right thing. And I was like, it is the right thing. I did a check-in. I'm so woo-woo, Amy. I love all the woo-woo-ness. And so I did a check, an internal check. When I think about quitting this and walking away from this, and I should say that, not quitting it, but walking away from that, how does it feel mentally? How does it feel in my heart? How does it feel in my gut? And so that internal check, and it gave me peace internally whenever I thought about walking away. And when I thought about, oh no, I got to keep it, it was more for show, right? To be able to say, and like, I am one of only 4 flex partners in the entire state. And I thought, so what? Like, what does that's so what? And so on that next appointment with that growth advisor, I was like, hey, so I'm going to like give this up and I don't want to do this anymore. And she's like, okay, I've never had a flex partner quit. We've kicked people off. We've never had anyone leave. I'm going to have to phone a friend and figure out what we need to do. And I was like, okay. And she said, your phone's still going to ring for, the remainder of the month. And I was like, okay. And so the ones that I had on, on call with me, I was like, you ladies pick up all the leads that you can. I'm not answering the phone anymore. And so I did. And as soon as I hung up on that Zoom call, just this huge weight had been lifted. And then my next function with my kids, and, we were just able to be there and be present the next outing. Even that home, just they came home and we played games and my phone could be in the other room and it was okay. I suddenly took back control of my calendar because with that partnership, I wasn't able to have that. And so, yeah, that saying no to things, the really evaluating what is it that we're doing this for, because it's so easy to get caught up in wanting to be there for everyone, and already this business, we work a lot of weekends and after hours, but we have to have time for ourselves and we have to have time for the people that are really important, because when we get to the finish line and our deathbed, what is it that we're going to remember? And I just don't think me and my Zillow Flex numbers is going to be what I'm going to be thinking of.
Pretty much guarantee that will not be what's on your mind, Kelli.
Yeah.
Why don't we wrap with what you want to say to your kids at this stage of the game?
And I said I wouldn't cry.
It happens.
Yeah. That you can achieve anything in life, and whatever it is that you want to do, if you consistently put the work and the effort in, it's there. And I will always be your #1 cheerleader in this life. And when life gets hard, I'm here to help guide, or just to sit with you in silence, whatever it takes. I love you. Oh,
I'm glad you did that. You'll be glad you did that.
yeah.
And I'm so glad that you said yes to us and not no. Other people can get your no's. Thank you for giving us your yes.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Now, those of you watching, I know you've gotten several wonderful tips out of this that you're going to put to good use. Please tell your colleagues what you're up to. Get them to come over to Star Power Club and check it out. On behalf of Kelli and all the Star Power family, thank you for watching, and we'll look forward to you joining us on the next interview.